Hey there, everybody, and welcome to Work Should Feel Good, the show where your career growth meets your real life. I'm your host, Diana Alt, and today my guest, Kenny Booth, and I are going to talk about how being intentional and willing to bet on yourself could just, in fact, lead you to your dream company, dream job. Kenny blends data, tech, and creativity to solve complex problems at scale. His path is not traditional. He faced setbacks and pivots and plenty of no's, but refused to let all that define his outcomes. Kenny's willingness to bet on himself led him to land a role recently as a senior business intelligence engineer with his dream employer, the Walt Disney Corporation or company. I don't know which it is. I'm not a Disney
I think it's the
person.
Walt Disney Company. Yeah.
I should have looked that up before we did this, but he said Disney, guys. And Kenny also has a podcast, which is Paradise. I failed to type it because I was in a hurry.
Okay, the Paradise Podcast. Yeah. Technically,
Yeah.
I'm on two podcasts.
You're on two? Tell me about that.
I'm on two. One of them is a professional one. It's called Quick Hits. It's a healthcare IT focused podcast.
Oh, cool.
And then I haven't been on the last few episodes just because of my schedule.
Yeah.
And then my personal ever evolving podcast is the Paradise Podcast.
Oh, that is why it just I was gonna say the Paradise Podcast, but that sounded too easy, and it turns out it is exactly the right thing.
Exactly what it is. Yeah.
Not to be confused with Paradise, the dystopian show on Hulu,
Correct. Yeah.
which is a banger of a show. If I'm
Is
being
it?
honest.
Okay.
It's actually insanely good.
Is it? Okay.
It's so good. I did the
recommendation.
rewatch the season 1 thing, and I'm now halfway through season 2.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, it's a really good one, but that's not what your podcast is about. So what got you into podcasting?
I think I've always had a face for radio. We'll say that. No, I think
we are putting this on YouTube. So
dang it. Okay.
We will.
What got me into podcasting? I think I've just always enjoyed kind of just talking and I like the idea of just kind of turning on a mic and just saying, whatever comes to mind. And
Yeah.
so I think initially this was during the pandemic. My cousins and I all, stuck indoors, needing some kind of creative outlet. And we've been close since we were children. And so we were like, hey guys, we all love Star Wars. Why don't we just get on our own Star Wars podcast together?
Nice.
And it was there were 5 of us, eventually 4 of us. And then we realized like we don't want to just talk about Star Wars. We want to talk about pop culture. And then it turned into a show called the Gen X Reverb, which was basically a bunch of Gen Xers kind of waxing nostalgia and just talking about like either favorite movies, or we even did an episode about our favorite commercials from back in the day, Super Bowl halftime show, like just kind of anything that allowed us to blend, modern pop culture with a bit of nostalgia and kind of give that Gen X.
I love that.
Yeah, it was great. And then it wasn't. So unfortunately that's no longer being recorded, but I'm trying to kind of carry the spirit of the Gen X Reverb into the Paradise Podcast. Excuse me.
I love that. What do you guys hit on the Paradise Podcast?
So the Paradise Podcast initially, so it started off, I apologize. I was not coughing until you hit record.
That's okay.
Sorry. Okay. The Paradise Podcast initially was me trying to kind of come up with this travel content because I was living in Maui, my favorite place on the planet. And I wanted to kind of help others know a little bit about it. So I was going to start doing, restaurant reviews, location suggestions, and just kind of do that. One that's hard to do on a podcast. And I wasn't really willing to go the YouTube route. I feel like that was a much bigger commitment than I was
a lot of work
to do. And then it kind of changed, especially after I had to move during the pandemic, moved to the mainland. Then it changed into this idea of me doing whatever it takes to get back to the island, and then eventually realizing like that just wasn't in the cards right now. And so it was like, well, now I'm just going to make my own paradise. And how am I making my own paradise? And it's just through my perspective shift of, just trying to kind of see the good and see the positive in things versus this, this constantly cynical take that you find. That's
so easy. Like even before some of the crazy political craziness we've experienced, especially the last couple of years, like even without that, it's hard to not be cynical. So I love that. What fun. Well, I went and found it on Spotify whenever you turned your stuff in and said, "Hey, I have a podcast, by the way." So
Oh,
I
okay.
will have to check it out,
Yeah, let
for
me know what you
sure.
think. Always up for suggestions and improvement, but I'm trying to stay authentically me. So who knows?
I always say nobody else is qualified for that job.
There you go.
I'm the only one qualified to be me. Okay, so you are doing geek stuff at Disney, okay,
Yes,
which sounds like a dream to a lot of people that I know.
yes.
Which came first, the love of geek stuff or the love of Disney?
Well, I'm gonna have to say it was the love of geek. Well, no, I'm gonna take it back. The love of Disney started probably before I was born. My mom was going to Disneyland way
Oh,
before I was even a thought in the universe. So she grew up in Arizona, a short 6 hour drive to the
yeah.
coast, and so she and her siblings would go to Disneyland as you know teenagers or whatever, and eventually that that spread to me. And so there are pictures which, you know, you didn't ask for any images or I would have sent it to you. But there are pictures of a baby Kenny
Aw.
at Disneyland. One of them is my favorite. It's just me meeting Pinocchio. And it was like a picture
Oh,
my dad took, and it means a lot. But yeah, so that love of Disney's always been there. And then, just kind of growing up, I always kind of had this. I don't know. Some people have called me happy go lucky, so I wasn't really into a lot of the, I don't the typical, like, we'll say violent entertainment,
yeah,
that a 13-year-old boy would be. But so I was
yeah,
just more of a Disney fan. And so, Star Wars, obviously, that was a big part of it. And then combining Star Wars, Indiana Jones, like kind of all of my favorite properties eventually ended up under the same
yeah. You're
roof.
like, "Oh,
So
it's"
it's just a natural, yeah, just a natural
yeah.
love of Disney.
That's interesting because like, I grew up in Missouri, outside St.
Okay.
Louis. I'm now like, a few hours away in Kansas City area. And so thinking about going to Disneyland or Disney World as a kid, like that wasn't even on the radar. I don't even know that I knew it existed other than when you watch the Super Bowl and they're like, you just won the Super Bowl. What are you doing? I'm going to Disneyland. Like, I don't know what that is. I knew what Mickey Mouse was, but I was more of like we watched all the movies. My little brothers, my younger brother is the same age as you. And from the time he's been little bitty, Lion King has been his movie.
Okay.
Aladdin was mine. Um, I was not really a princesses person.
Sure.
I mean, we knew them, but I was way more into like Aladdin than I
The
was
adventure.
to Cinderella or whatever.
Sure.
Although I do now have a favorite Disney princess that a lot of people like to argue with me about.
All right. Let's hear it.
It's General Leia Organa.
Oh, I guess, yeah, she would count. She would count as a princess.
I mean, I've had people, you know how there's Disney people and then there's the completely pedantic, obnoxious Disney people?
Sure.
I've gotten in a couple of fights with completely pedantic Disney people, which is hilarious because I don't care. So it's kind of fun to bait those people sometimes. But yeah,
Well,
I
are you
I
the personality type that loves to argue even if you're not that passionate about the point that you're
I
arguing?
will occasionally do that. I sometimes like to just poke at stuff.
We are on the same
Um,
page in that, and we
yeah, I
took a
like to get a rise out
personality
of
quiz.
people. I like to get a
Absolutely.
rise out of people. But I like General Leia Organa because that's like the badass. Like, not that Leia was weak in the early Star Wars movies, but come on. Come on. It's a
Yeah.
general. What's yours?
She's
Do
a
you have a favorite
a favorite princess?
princess?
Man,
Do you have one?
I don't. All right, I do, but it's a weird story. Okay,
Lay it on me.
I'm gonna say it's Ariel, but only for this one specific reason. Because at a very pivotal time in my life as a sixth grader, I had a crush on a girl, and we were watching The Little Mermaid, and it was just very meaningful to me. So she became like a favorite Disney
Oh,
princess. Only, but in reality, I have to say it's Snow White. My wife and I have this running joke
I like
that Snow
like
White
that.
is
Snow
Disney.
White's a good one. Snow White is
Yeah,
a good one.
absolutely.
So you had this lifelong Disney thing, and
Mhm.
you're like a parks and a movies and you like all of it.
Parks movies. I love a lot of the old movies too, like the
Yeah.
60s, like so. The Absent-Minded Professor. Swiss Family Robinson is actually one of my favorite
Swiss
movies.
Family Robinson, I love.
I mean, just the adventure, like, so I love, yeah. So I've always been like, we had like the Disney Channel when I was a kid, so
Mhm.
like the vintage cartoons, etc. Like I love
Yeah.
those,
Yeah.
and the books, obviously.
So you're into all of that. And then when did the geekery love start to come in that led to your career?
It's funny. So I remember in junior high, no, high school. You're kind of trying to pick this career path because I've always been an entrepreneur. What I wanted to do initially was I wanted to be a stockbroker. So
Really?
I had this idea I was going to, go into business and be a stockbroker. And I should like, I have to look this guy up. I wonder if he still is around. I was given an opportunity through my business class to go and basically interview someone in the field that I wanted to get into.
Cool.
And so I went to this small, financial office in Omaha, sat down and met with a stockbroker, and I noticed his pants were split, and I realized that he was not like he just I don't, maybe he was just having a bad day, but you're talking to a high schooler who didn't think through all of that. So what I saw
Yeah.
were all of these indicators that he wasn't as successful as he maybe claimed to be. And
Yeah.
so then I just started realizing like, yeah, maybe that's not me. And I just kind of
Yeah.
started getting into more uh, it was more like computer aided design, and just kind of that's when I just started exploring more on the geek side of things. And so
Yeah.
eventually I ended up in a job. This was after I was married, and it was a very boring job. So I was trying to make it interesting. I was just answering calls, but then I realized that the interface that we had uh, allowed us to program what were called macros, like these automated
Mhm.
solutions, these automations. And so I started playing with that, and it was funny. I would sit there and I'd play my Game Boy, answering calls all day long, and my the woman next to me, who was definitely, yeah, she'd probably like 15, 20 years older than me, she would complain about me all day, and they were like, "But he's doing amazing. I don't know what your point is." And so it was because of all these macros that were just automating all of this stuff for me. So I started getting into that. That got me into another job in the same company where I just got to kind of pursue. They kind of encouraged me to pursue it and start figuring out ways to creatively solve these problems. And it was all out of laziness. I just hated doing the same thing over and over
I have
again.
a
And so I
I
was like,
I've known
I
a
need to do
guy
it.
for a long time that he's worked in accounting and finance, but I met him actually on a message board in like 1999 or something, and later became in-person friends after we decided that wasn't quite as scary as our parents thought it was. But his handle was retired on the job because he would always go in and implement all that kind of stuff and then be like,
Absolutely.
I'm just going to screw around on the internet while my job
100%.
gets done beautifully. So
100%.
it was easy to do that in that time frame. So did you ever study like computer science or programming at university level or
I did eventually. So what happened was I ended up saying, well, I would actually like to officially become like, a software programmer.
yeah.
So I started going to school. I went back to school, or went to school, and took I was on the computer science track. Halfway through that, I ended up getting a job at a software developer, and it was like for healthcare IT, right? So that was like
Mm,
that's when I finally went from healthcare insurance to healthcare IT. And
okay.
so I'm about halfway through this, associate program, and I realized like I'm burning myself out for a job that I already have. So I
Right.
had already kind of just slid into this role
Right.
as an engineer, and the cool thing was that it was small enough. I got to work with Dr. Paul Kenyon. He's a great leader at this company, but he would actually sit down with some of the engineers, and he's writing code, teaching us how to
Cool.
write in Objective C. And so
Hmm.
myself and another guy were like picking all this up. We started writing our own patches for the software. I was doing a lot of database stuff. So like they eventually just kind of gave me this project and said, the software engineer who was working on this left. Do you want to try and make, heads or tails of it and go from there? I basically built a new service line for this company, or at least allowed us to maintain this service line for a company, and kind of developed a lot of new tools, and that kind of just led into other things. But yeah,
Nice.
so yeah, eventually I just kind of wormed my way in and realized like I really enjoy this. I kind of have an affinity for code and affinity for solving really really hard problems.
I figured out pretty early on in my tech career that I did not like coding. Like I had to do it. I did it for a little while. And I
Mhm.
was mostly in reporting. Like when I found out, especially when I found out you landed a business intelligence engineering, I'm like, I was in this data lane for 20 years in corporate. And now I work with a lot of clients on their career development and job searches that do exactly what you do.
Mm,
Um,
nice.
but it's like I finally I had people call me technical for a long time, and I was like, I went to engineering school. Like I hung out with people that majored in aerospace engineering for fun. Like
Mm.
which is one of the hardest majors you can go into.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, and I got a chemistry degree and a master's in engineering management. And my dad used to say I majored in extracurricular activities because I was like student government and all that kind of stuff. But
Oh, okay.
me and coding didn't get along, but I figured out like I'm analytical, I'm not technical.
I
Like
see.
I find it exhausting to keep up with technology. Um,
But you can talk to the technical.
I can.
Yeah,
I'm a secret decoder ring,
there you
basically.
go.
I've made a whole career off of being a secret decoder ring because I was a business analyst and I business analyst, product management, project management, like all the stuff that's like the dude from Office Space that says I take the requirements from the customers and I take them to the engineers, only I
Yeah.
actually did something. I didn't just carry paper around. That was my job. I was a scrum master for a while too. So
Man, okay.
so you did all this stuff. You basically had your unconventional entry into becoming a developer. And you mentioned earlier you've always been an entrepreneur. Always.
Yeah.
Were you the kid with did you have a lemonade stand? Were you washing cars when you were a kid? Like
Oh, yeah,
what
nothing
were
is
your first business ventures?
yeah. So as a kid, I remember trying to do like the lemonade stand briefly until I realized that we lived in a weird dead end and there was no traffic.
No
So
one's
that
driving to the
we
end of the
we gave up on
cul-de-sac
that.
for a warm glass of country time lemonade. It's not
Right,
happening.
exactly. That with questionable standards. But I will say, like, my most successful venture, I was in 5th grade. Okay, we had just moved to the Midwest from Phoenix. Um, or well, no, yeah, because we were in Kansas, then we were in Phoenix, and then back. So I've moved a lot. But anyway, so we're
Yeah.
in the Midwest, and again, innocent kid who doesn't realize optics. I someone gave me like this little fanny pack, which was okay in like the late 80s.
They're back again.
I'll never well, I wear one when I run, but we don't wanna talk about that.
Oh,
But,
that's different.
what I started doing was mixing Kool-Aid and sugar and putting it in these little baggies and selling it like it was
Stop.
Pixie Sticks. I got called into the principal's office because I was a huge hit with the kids. I got called into the principal's office and they were wanting to make sure that it wasn't like
They're like,
drugs.
look, you can't be selling colored sugar at school.
Exactly, right. In
Do that.
in these little baggies, you know? So
Wow.
yeah, so, yeah, that was one of my first
I
successful and
love it. I
we
like
we
that you
burned
were
bright.
not trading time for dollars. Like that's amazing. You built a product company from the ground
Did.
up at the tender age
Absolutely.
of 11.
I had a
That's
good clean
fantastic.
assembly line, it was great.
Yeah. I mean, I was starting to I think my very first thing I earned money for was mowing lawns.
Okay.
And I didn't do a lot of it. But I had an older brother that's 5 years older. And I was around that age, like middle school, junior high, whenever I started earning extra allowance by mowing our lawn,
Okay.
which wasn't super huge. And my brother was like in high school, like with a paid job outside the house. But he had a couple people from the neighborhood that he mowed their lawns. And if my brother was unavailable, I would get the job.
Oh, there you go.
So I'm like, I'm sure gonna go get Miss Viola's $20.
Oh,
I'm
absolutely.
down for that.
The older ladies
Um,
paid spectacularly when it came to mowing lawns, and I did do that
the
even though I was
worst thing
really
ever.
little.
It is the worst job ever. I hate it. I have not mowed a lawn in almost 20 years.
Right.
So I would rather move than mow the lawn.
Yeah.
So it's not great.
But you had to do it. You had to do it to realize
I
how hard
mean, it
work
has to get done. I will go with that. But yeah, money was a big motivator. I like that. Because $20 was $1 million when I was
Oh,
12 years old.
no, absolutely.
That was
No,
1986. I
all
mean,
the things you could do with that.
yeah, you could buy all your Christmas presents for a couple of lawnmowers, which was nice. And I liked being able to buy my own gift for somebody with my own money.
Mhm.
That meant a lot to me when I was a kid. Sometimes I'd get a little bit from like my dad, go buy your mom a Mother's Day present or whatever, but
Sure.
it felt good to have my own money.
Yeah.
So what else did you have any other ones? Because we're gonna talk about Code Blue here in a minute.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I just wondered what else you had done entrepreneurial.
So I did stuff like that. I mean, mowing lawns. I and then I actually ended up just getting into the working world as a kid. So it wasn't until much later when I started getting into building websites and
Yeah.
kind of solving issues for people, and that's kind of eventually when Code Blue was born.
Okay. What was your
Um,
first?
yeah.
What was your first like someone else paid you a W-2 paycheck? Do you remember?
Um, yeah, it was a website. Oh, no, it was software. I built like a really, really terrible Visual Basic program for someone just to solve like a very simple problem for them. But I was like, this is real money.
Yeah.
I think it was after I was married. So, I was young, we didn't have any money. My wife was staying home with our then, infant son. And so I was like, I need to make extra money. And so in talking to someone about their business, that's when I realized like, hey, I can solve this problem for you.
Mhm.
And I think I made like $1,500 at the
Yeah.
time. Hey, it paid a
It
bill or two.
also was $1 million.
Yeah.
When you have a baby, you
I
gotta
look
stay
at it
home,
now
stay
and I'm
home.
like, wow. But yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So Code Blue Data Solutions, is that right? Because I wrote down
Correct.
Code Blue.
Yeah.
What first off, why'd you name it Code Blue?
Well, being in healthcare IT, I like the idea of like a Code Blue being, we have to resuscitate this business, and I like
You can look at that positively or negatively if you want. So
it was an alliteration. I like the alliteration. I thought it just kind of rolled off the tongue. It's an extremely long email. I acknowledge that, and will eventually change that, but I haven't really felt a need to. But yeah, it was just it was that idea of resuscitating a business back to life. And I really, found out later, kind of made people think I only helped in the healthcare space, but
oh yeah.
it worked. It worked since most of my, since I wasn't really advertising, it was more
People are hiring Kenny
one-on-one.
at that point. They're hiring Kenny because Kenny can get it done.
Yeah.
So did you do you and you've had this business for over 10 years, if I remember.
I have. Yeah.
You've
I
had
think
it for a very long time.
Yeah.
What gave you the nerve to even do the first project?
I've always been the let's just test it in production kind of person. Like, let's see what we get into.
God, I was the QA manager.
You would have hated me.
No, I wouldn't have, because you can communicate.
And I get things done, and I love getting into a situation. Like I love finding out what I didn't know when I get into a project, and I realized later that costs me money. Right. But initially it was like, hey, this is one, it gives me a reason to spend time doing something that is going to teach me the skill that I'm enjoying. And then two, I needed the money. That was a pretty big motivator. And I knew I was going to do whatever it took to get the project done. So I think those are the motivators, honestly. And then just like this, I don't necessarily fear failure. So if I couldn't get it done, I knew I would, like I said, just do whatever it took to get it done, whether it's, call in additional support. Like I knew people that could help me code my way out of a problem.
Okay, we're going to wander for a minute because you said something that is unusual among us Gen Xers that worked in tech. And so I want to know where it came from, because anybody listening to this that can capture something from that, huge. You're not being afraid to fail. If there's anything that keeps people stuck, that's what it is. Have
That was
you always been that person? How do you think is that how your parents were and kind of wired you that way? Did you have experience as a youth that
you know
made you that way? Because that is, oh my God, if I would have had that when I was young.
Yeah. That's a good question. I definitely attribute it to my parents in a way. Um, I know like when I was in middle school, they had really high expectations in terms of, I needed to get the best grades possible. I was in a lot of like the AP courses, but then I kind of turned into a slacker in high school. And I think that's where I just developed like this nonchalant attitude, and whether it was friends I was associating with or just realizing that this is all kind of, and I think I had like this weird like hippie vibe for a while, and it was just like, what's the point of all this, And
And you're
so
in Omaha with the hippie vibe, right?
and in
That's
Omaha,
fantastic.
yeah,
I
just
love that.
imagine a guy in jean co's who can't actually skate but plays pretty good hacky sack. Um, it's just, yeah, it's a weird look, I know, but yeah, so I think it was just like this idea that it's gonna be okay, it's fine. So, you know, uh, if the grades weren't perfect, it's okay,
Oh
and
my gosh. What did your
yeah, I
parents
don't
do
know.
for a living?
So my mom was kind of like, so she worked at Mutual of Omaha for 30
A
some years.
million years. Yeah.
What did she do? I don't really know what my mom did. She was like in, I think she ended up in something to do with like the legal. I mean, she wasn't like a lawyer or anything like that, but she helped out with the licensing of agents. I mean, but she was
Mm,
just a hard worker, right?
yeah.
And my dad was actually he was like a truck driver all my life, like a local kind of truck driver. So truck driver and
So
delivery,
it
but
makes sense because your parents were in the like, we just got to get it done.
that's it.
Like
Yeah.
you got to not break too much stuff on the truck. Don't get pulled over. Don't get in a wreck. Get the stuff
Right.
there on the right day. And
And he
then your
worked.
mom probably had detailed work, but still, it's like there's always going to be more. There's always going to be
Yeah.
another agent sign up. My parents were in academia.
Okay.
So junior college level professors. My
Uh,
mom taught English. My dad basically was the pre-engineering department. He taught all the things except chemistry at the
okay.
school he was at. And they were both exceptional teachers. But in my house, you got A's.
Yeah. There was no
Which
other.
is funny because my dad actually was not a straight A student. I didn't learn that. Like, I think my mom despaired when I learned that. He was a farm kid. So he was
Oh,
constantly like working the farm, sometimes had another job and, doing school all the way through college.
okay.
So he's like, I'm going to get good enough grades to get these degrees. But my dad was also brilliant. So my mom, valedictorian, like on
Oh,
point.
nice. Okay.
So yeah, it's hard to grow up in that because they're a little bit more wired for the rules and the things like that. So I'm
That's a lot.
definitely the black sheep, but I did have perfectionism wiring, and it took me, we're like Gen Xers embracing the idea of entrepreneurship young is pretty rare. It's a lot rarer than it is with millennials and Gen Z. So it took me, God, I finally got an LLC in 2018, and
Okay.
I'd been doing side stuff for money for a few years, but it was like a couple of coaching clients a year and like a little bit of speaking and training type stuff. It was never like I just did it. I did not think I could kill it and bring it home so
Mm,
I could actually eat. And I finally decided, you know what? I can do this. I can make it real. Took
okay.
forever. I wish I would have had the wiring to do it 15 years earlier. So I don't begrudge. I mean, the experience I had before that is knowledge and wisdom that informs how I help people now. So I'm not mad that I had that experience, but I'm more entrepreneurial, but it was covered up under this is how the people in my orbit operate. So
Okay. Gotcha.
super interesting. So in entrepreneurship, um, who do you think it's good and bad for? It's like there's such a lot of messages about doing your own thing.
Yeah.
And I think it can feel really weird for people. Like I talk to people that are looking for corporate jobs in product management, but they also a lot of them feel like, well, if I was really a serious product manager, I would be a founder or I would have a consultancy. Like there's a lot of this kind of Gary V induced entrepreneurship
Mhm.
porn. But then there's other people that'll be real and say like this is not for everybody. Who do you think what do you think are the hallmarks of somebody that can do what you've done and have, basically a consulting or software development agency
Yeah.
and who shouldn't be
I,
doing it?
so I know, I think, I don't know, I feel like entrepreneurship kind of runs somewhere in my family because I've got I've got family that is entrepreneurs, and I've got, close, like second cousins, et cetera. There's a lot of people I know that kind of had that entrepreneurial bone. What I've seen though, I think for people that it's not for people who make excuses for themselves.
Mm,
And so, like, I'll say, like, when I see someone who's failing or not failing, or they're not excelling as an entrepreneur, it's because they need help. But when you offer what can help them, they have excuses as to why that won't work.
mm.
That person immediately, like, you've got to change your attitude because eh, you're never going to go anywhere if you're always
I
giving
think it's
yourself an
also
excuse.
important to note that there's a difference between a reason and making excuses.
Absolutely. Yeah,
There's a difference.
uh, a
A
reason is
reason
just
is
like, okay,
like,
what do I
this
do
is
about
a
it?
thing in my life. Yeah,
Yeah.
you continue.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, a reason is like, look, I hear what you're saying, but here's why I can't do that. And then if I offer a solution to that, it's like, okay, so is there going to be another reason? Or, at some point, it's just like, there's always going to be,
Yeah.
if there's always a reason, those are all just excuses, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and there's legitimate reasons why things can't get done,
Yeah.
or why things. I mean, there's been times when I wasn't able to take advantage of an opportunity because my reason was I wanted to prioritize family.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't call that an excuse. That was legitimately a reason.
Yeah.
But
I
yes, I think
committed I
anybody.
committed this level of availability to my wife and my kids. Like,
Yeah.
that's the reason. That's like a values line drawn in the sand. But yeah, to me, it's whenever there's always every single suggestion has why I can't do that.
Mhm.
That's when I start to get concerned. And I see it in coaching too. Like
Oh, I bet. Yeah, I bet you
I
do.
see it in coaching. I see it in the most infuriating is job search coaching when people
Okay.
are like, I am going to lose my house, but I can't go like try to have coffee with 3 people a week. Like, you don't have a job. What are you,
What Yeah, what are you
what are
doing?
you doing with your time? I have coffee with 3 people a week and I work 50 hours a week. What are you
Right.
talking about?
Yeah.
So, and I don't expect everybody to be able to have the same energy, but it's the constant, like this works and you refuse. Like, is there a
You
different
said a
way to
word,
do
though.
it? Huh?
You said a word that's really important,
What?
energy. So that you
Yeah.
have to have energy. Like, you gotta realize entrepreneurship isn't 40 hours a week. It's 50, 60, 70 sometimes. It's late
Depends
nights.
on the
Like,
kind of business you have, but definitely for the kind of business you had where you are making the thing.
mhm,
You're making software, apps, etc., websites. You're making the thing. There's no like, oh, we just have it on a CD in the back, or we'll
right.
just download it to to Google, whatever. That's not the life that you live. So, but yeah, it's definitely also no matter what the time is, energy can be a thing. Like
Yeah.
I have autoimmune stuff. I've literally had freaking brain surgery last year. I had
Good.
several years where I could not put the energy in, but you know what I would have been even less likely to be able to do? 50 hours a week in corporate tech, which is what I averaged during my time that I was in that.
Wow.
Because sometimes it demanded it and sometimes my parents were teachers and farmers. Like I'm wired for overwork.
There you go.
because the crops have to come in and the semester ends and you've got to get the grades out. So I was kind of
Right.
raised with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, making excuses. Anything else that comes up for you is like, yeah, I don't think you're ready for this.
I think like a person, you can't have like this. How am I going to phrase this so I don't offend people? You can't come from a place of privilege in your mind. Like a person can have privileged circumstances, but if you come to the table and say, because this is my pedigree or because this is my education, I deserve a seat at the table. I
That
don't
doesn't
think it's
work.
for you because you're not it's and I know it works for some people, right? Like, there are people that continue to, because of their background, because they've been networked in the right circles, they're going to succeed. But they're not, I don't think that they're a success.
If you only, I think I know how to phrase this.
Yeah,
If you are only relying on the pedigree,
there we go.
that's where it's a problem.
Absolutely.
Because having a pedigree might get you into the room and sitting down at the table, but you aren't going to stay invited to that room if you can't make an impact
Yeah, there you go.
or if you make other people feel like you think you're better than them.
Yeah, exactly.
So, well, there we go. Look at that. We did it.
We
How
did-
exciting.
High
When
five.
people talk about pedigree too, like one of the things I'll talk about with people that are kind of like you and I, where it's like we had our very good tech corporate careers and we also want our side thing or we want to pivot entirely to that. We'll hear this. Well, I'm not an expert. I wasn't the vice president of anything. I didn't get my degree from an Ivy League, whatever. I like to tell them, look, every single person I've hired that was business coach adjacent has been, two of them had GEDs, but helped me immensely. And nobody else has had like a degree in business. The people that I have learned the most from and have paid money to be coached by, none of them have an MBA. None of them, like two of them don't have college degrees. They have GEDs for high school. So you can learn, you want to learn from the people that know the stuff, not necessarily the people with the pedigree. So
Yeah.
what is one of the most interesting things you've learned about yourself while being, running Code Blue?
So I learned pretty early on that the way I motivate myself can really be toxic. Unfortunately.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's not
Say
good.
more. I got to hear about. I think this is common.
Okay.
Like, I don't even know what you're about to say.
I feel like I'm
think
going to say
there's
something
a lot
and
of
you're going to
people
be
that
like,
are
I
that
feel
way.
that.
So let's hear it.
Let's say, okay, so I'm working on something, working on a deliverable, and I can't get this code to work, right?
Yeah.
And for the life of me, I'm sometimes I'll obsess, and now I'm not sleeping. I'm up
Oof.
2 in the morning. Got to get this done. Got to get this done. Back of my mind knows, dude, go take a nap. You'll have the answer when you wake up, right? And 99% of the time that works. When that doesn't work, right? That 0.1% of the, or that 0.01% of the time, I start to tell myself, like, you know what, you should just hang it up and go work at McDonald's, because that's like it's this internal monologue, and for whatever reason, it kicks me out of, like, I snap myself out of it, and I'm like, oh, there was a typo in line 45.
Oh, right.
It's
Yeah.
just,
I
and it's like,
missed the squirrely bracket or
yeah,
whatever
exactly,
you're
or do
doing.
that, or it's like, oh, you needed to go back because 2 weeks ago you committed some code that is screwing you right now, and so, like,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, like, my mind just kind of, it's like I hit the
So
reset
you
button.
basically take yourself to, fuck it, I'm going to the lowest of the lowest thing I can think of.
Yeah.
The job that you swore you'd never had, and then that gets you out of it. I
Absolutely.
don't know if that's toxic or genius.
But I'll tell you, the sad part is, like, if my family needed it, I would absolutely be.
Of course.
I'd be on the fry machine. So
Yeah.
it's so nothing against anybody that has that job.
Yeah,
Because if I needed to, I would
that's
absolutely
that's not what you were built professionally to do.
Right.
So thinking of having to go and do that, there's a lot of things when I don't want a W-2 from anything but a company I own ever again. But if I have to,
You'll do
I'll
it.
go do it.
Yeah.
I did tell my mom one time I would rather move to Latin America
Oh,
than have a W-2 because
nice.
my financial advisor likes to tell me you can't retire here now the way that you're accustomed to living,
Sure.
but there are plenty of places that you could go
Yeah.
and
There's a
retire.
couple of
So you're
islands.
fine. Like if I'm
Yeah.
freaking out, I'll be like, you're fine.
You're fine.
You are fine. So that's interesting. Um, so you've had Code Blue, like it's been an interesting journey for you because a lot of people think about starting something like that, and well, that's going to be a side hustle. I'm going to do that to earn beer money or learn skills or, or I'm going to do it till I can build it up and say goodbye to corporate forever. But you've been kind of in and out though.
I have, yeah. So it was always just initially it was like, okay, this is pay extra bills money. This is
Yeah.
make sure we can go to Disney World with the family money, right? And then we moved to Maui in 2014. And I
I'm
was a
so
W-2.
sorry that you had to move to
It
Hawaii.
was the worst. No,
Awful.
and I'll tell you, I that had been a dream, and I was just
Mhm.
like, "We're gonna make it happen." I remember people patting me on the head, like, "Oh, you think you're gonna move to Hawaii?" And then, like a year later, we're at our going away party. My mother being
Yeah.
one of those people, she didn't believe that I was serious until I bought the one-way tickets for us.
Yeah.
But I so we're in so it was always just a side gig, and we get to Maui, and I'm like, it is more expensive here than
It is a
any
lot.
of the research that I immediately start looking for web jobs, and I start,
Yeah.
hosting, and developing and stuff like that. And that was great. And then I started, a friend of mine reaches out to me and he's like, "Hey, uh, I'm at the startup. We need somebody to help us with, design the UI on this software. Are you in?" Absolutely, I'm in. So I get this job. Again, it's just on the side, and I don't know. I always feel like, I'm a religious person. God has always kind of set up the next thing before the current thing ends. Is how I feel.
Mhm.
6 months of consulting, and I basically get a call from my current employer saying, "We would like to invite you to move back to Omaha." Because they were based out of Omaha. They let me work remotely for about 3 years. So it's 2017. And they said, "We'd like you to come back, um, or else." And so I was like, "I'll take the or
I'll
else,"
take
because
else.
yeah, I was like, "Guys, I'm in Hawaii
And
and you want me
yeah,
to move back to Nebraska in the winter." By the way, it would have been like January. I would have just stayed outside and frozen to death. I would have rather
yeah.
have done it. So at that point I just said, "Well, I'm going to take the or else." Before I even reached out to the company I had been kind of moonlighting with, and I just said, I got off the phone, went and talked to my wife, and I said, I reached out to Greg Georgiatos. He is one of the founders of this company, and I said, "Hey man, I think I'm going to need a little bit more hours. Are you guys in?" And he's like, "Tell you what, why don't you fly to Palo Alto this weekend and we'll talk. We'll do like a hackathon thing." So I spent, I took like the last, $600 I had, and I flew out for the weekend. We had a great, we vibed, and he's like, "Yeah, you're in." And so I was like employee number three, and it was
Wow.
it was not a W-2 situation. I was contracting with them.
Yeah. But you had
For
enough it was enough,
Oh yeah, yeah,
basically.
it paid the bills. It was great.
Yeah.
And then actually, I ended up getting a call from a client, uh, at the old software company. It was a hospital basically reaching out to me asking, "Hey, we need you to be our admin for this software that you guys developed or your former company developed." So I had like basically I went from, this brings in, a couple $100 a month to now it's paying all the bills. And we were doing pretty well. I mean, we were able to travel. I was able to go back and visit, my parents when I needed to. We took a trip to Disney World from Hawaii, which was,
That's a
pretty
lot.
expensive. I mean, it was taking care of us. It was great. So it
Yeah.
was, yeah, it surprised me how well how well I took to the consulting world.
So, thank you for sharing all of that because I think what I hear going through all of that is you have to constantly be listening and open and know what you're about.
Yep.
Because if you just get into the mindset of Well, it's got to be full-time W-2, 40 hours a week and 2 weeks vacation a year. Like you're going to miss what you had, which is more flexible than that. And you still were able to provide a good life for your family. When
Yeah.
you have been in this situation where you were an employee and you had Code Blue on the side, how did you handle that? Because that's a big concern that a lot of people have is my company going to get pissed? Should I disclose it? Like, what do I do about that? Have you found that the places that you worked when you were kind of more inside mode were supportive of that? How did they react? How did you handle that stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that actually has got me in trouble in the past. It's kind of long. Yeah,
What
that has
aspects of it
happened.
got you in trouble? Let's
Well,
do that because there's all kinds of reasons why it can be a benefit.
yeah,
But also sometimes people just dismiss the idea that it could be a problem.
yeah,
Like, oh, well, your company's a jerk if they won't let you do that. Let's talk about what actually became a problem and how you dealt with it.
sure. So conflict of interest is a real thing. Um, even when, so I'll give you the scenario, right? Because I have no shame. It's okay. Everything's a learning opportunity. I had someone reach out. This is after I had decided to go ahead and become a full time, at this
The
at this
startup.
new software at the startup.
Yeah.
And so now I'm full time for them. And an opportunity came up for a potential client, uh, servicing a software that I had experience with and no one else in the company had experience with.
Okay.
Our company as a whole was not interested in pursuing that as a business line.
Okay.
So I took that as a side gig. I basically said, "Hey guys, here's job ABC. It's an opportunity. It's not a huge contract, but it's a good opportunity." They didn't pursue it, so I just said, "Well, I'll do it. I'll do it on the side,
Okay.
and no big deal." Well, a few months go by, and come to find out that my company was really interested in being an approved vendor with this hospital. It's
Mm,
actually Advent here in Orlando, being
okay.
an approved vendor with them. So they are in there, they're sitting down, meeting with this transplant team, and they say, "Oh yeah, well we know Ken Booth. He works for you guys." And they got blindsided with that. And I end up in a call with the founders, basically saying, "Dude, we've trusted you, and how could you go behind our back? What are you doing?" So it was a moment of me not being open in my communication
Yeah.
to what I considered not to be a conflict of interest. Turns out it was sort of a conflict of interest, right? Because I was here now working for, I was basically an approved vendor with,
Yeah.
that's what they
You
wanted.
were you were an approved vendor, which is what
Yeah.
they were trying to be.
And I was
Yeah.
like, guys, I tried to give this to you, and so we ended up working things out. It was fine, but it always kind of left a black mark on my reputation with a few of
With
them
that company.
for a while. Yeah. But I mean, and it worked out. It was fine. Um, that contract eventually ended, and fortunately, I was still in good with my company.
Yeah.
So
So is the lesson there that if you're doing a side thing that is related to your day job, that you need to be crystal clear, sure you understand like the disclosure and moonlighting policies and follow them to the T? Is that kind of what it is?
yeah.
Or did the startup even have that? Because that's another thing.
Well, so I had never signed anything because I think I was early enough. I was
Okay.
single digit employee number. They didn't have a lot of that in place, so I never signed anything like that.
Got it.
However, had I just had that conversation, they might have said, "Hey, I we're not okay with that," or "Okay, we're going to bring this under our umbrella," right? And
Yeah.
so
If you're
I
gonna do it anyway, then let's
yeah
figure out how to do it. I got it.
yeah
That's really interesting. So one of the things that a lot of people do not realize, and it's particularly important when you're doing any technology development, whether it's software, engineering, anything, and that is that a lot of employment agreements have buried in there something that says any code or any product that you develop while you work here is ours
Yeah.
And they don't just mean what you're doing in the scope of your employment with them. They mean everything, everything.
Yeah.
I had worked with some people years ago who had gotten a carve out. We worked for a smaller company, and this guy was working on some new technology. The CEO knew, like the CEO supports aspiring founders, like mentored I don't know how many people that have successful businesses right now, but he got a carve out from the original company, and then they were bought by a large company. It was EMC. They
Mm.
were bought by a large company, and then later on, after the initial company CEO had departed, like that large company tried to basically say that this carve out is not a real thing. Like there was a lot of court and a lot of expenses and a lot of it
Wow.
got real messy. And that was with the paperwork,
Hmm.
let alone without the paperwork. So
Yeah.
let's go over into how you got to Disney.
Yeah. Okay.
You said in your interview prep sheet, it all started with a Terry Weaver podcast,
Yeah.
which sounds
Actually,
right. Like that
Terry's
sounds,
touched a lot of lives. He's a good dude.
yeah.
So after I had, quit in order to stay in Hawaii, right? Here I am suddenly full-time consultant. Around that time, I was looking for any Disney content just because I was like, hey, I'm missing one of my favorite places. Obviously, Hawaii was my favorite place, but my second favorite
Second
place.
favorite place. Yeah.
And I find Terry's podcast that he was doing with Seculo, and it was like
Logan.
a
Yeah.
Logan
So you're
Seculo.
talking about WDW today.
Yeah, exactly. So I was listening to that, and then Terry mentions that he's got, his other podcast, Make Elephants Fly, right?
Mhm.
And so I listened to that, and I'm like, okay. And he mentions he's got this conference, and I have to give my wife credit for just supporting my harebrained ideas.
Yeah.
Hope, I think I have to go to this conference. I'm gonna go check it out. I was like, it just happens to be by Disney. I might go in, for a park or whatever. But I went, and
Was
I
this the
had a
LA
chance.
thing or was it
No, this is Orlando.
Orlando? Okay.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I had a chance to meet Terry. I was really listening to a lot of just the ideas that people were coming to the floor with, and it was a lot of it was what I needed at that time, which is like, yeah, you can do this. I was like, I'm pivoting. I think I can't remember um who all was there now that I think about it, like who all the speakers were, but I just remember being like impacted, like I can do this. I
Mhm.
think I briefly needed that permission, and
Yeah.
so I was like, I can do this. I ended up talking to a guy there who had an idea for some software,
Cool.
and it was Disney related. It was for a DVC content creator. I end up we connected. I ended up building the software, and one of the QA testers, um, Rob Deary, I later on went on to start a company with Rob, but he and I met basically through this software project. The software eventually, kind of didn't work out.
It
It was a
happens.
cool piece of software though, but it helped me realize that, yeah, you
You
can
can
build
make
mobile apps now.
something. You can
Yeah,
make a
exactly.
thing.
Yeah, I was like, okay,
You
dude,
don't
so
just
you
have to
can,
stand up a 3-page WordPress site.
yeah,
So,
it's like add that to
yeah.
your resume, and it's not just about. It was something completely different than I had done before. It wasn't healthcare related. It wasn't middleware. It was a true app that somebody could put in their hands. And so, um, from that experience, Rob and I, kind of developed a friendship, and he eventually starts working for Disney, and he's like, "Hey, I want to
Cool.
introduce you to a leader here." And Hope and I this is years later, right? Hope and I just happened to go celebrate our anniversary for a weekend, and I was like, I'm going to go have coffee, and met my leader, Erica Huerta, and she's like, I'm like, tell me about what you do. And she's, data science manager. She's telling me, she's like, I think, we literally had an hour conversation, and we just vibed. We could just tell that we were very, we didn't talk super technical, but she's a good study of character. And so
Mhm.
something about me, uh, she liked, so I would reach out occasionally, like, hey, any opportunities, just kind of looking, hey, maybe I could contract with you guys or something like that. But I'd say, hey, this is what I'm working on. So just every couple of months I'd reach out. Uh, and one day she just woke up and was like, I'm gonna hire Ken Booth. And it was consulting for a year. And
Mhm.
then eventually
Were
it
you consulting full time for that year, or were you like side gigging it? What was that like?
it was, yeah, it basically ended up being it was kind of a side gig slash it eventually ramped up and became full time.
You had enough hours that it can be
Yeah.
full time.
Yeah, oh
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And it was at the right time because my other company, things had unfortunately just kind of, um I went from being, an internal employee to now being back to a consultant, basically.
Mhm.
And so I took that as a demotion. Um,
Right.
It's how I felt about it. And so I was looking elsewhere at the time, and
Okay.
yeah, here comes Disney. And
So I
so
wanna yeah, go ahead, sorry. There's
no,
so
no, no,
much to
it
unpack
worked
that
out.
I'm like, "Oh,
There's a lot
I'm
to
very
unpack, yeah.
excited because there's a lot of
Sure.
really inside that story, there's a lot of really practical things that people feel uncomfortable with, that
Okay.
I think you show that it doesn't have to be that damn hard, like, y'all are making it
Right.
hard. So, number 1 is taking a side thing that didn't work out. A lot
Mhm.
of people would have taken that as, well, I'm not cut out for this because even if it wasn't the technology, like maybe I didn't understand the client well enough or whatever those reasons were. Like they would take that as, well, I tried a project and it didn't end up setting the world on fire, so I can't do that. So that's thing number 1. Then you have this, did you say his name's Rob that
Mhm.
you met? Okay, you have that relationship and people want to be so transactional with a relationship like that. Like, oh, I met
Mm.
Rob and either Rob gives me like a unicorn or I don't ever talk to Rob again, but you nurtured a relationship with Rob.
Yeah.
And then there's the part where you met Erica and you gave up an hour of your anniversary trip to have uh, coffee with her.
Mhm.
And a lot of people won't do that. They'll be like, "Well, I'm on vacation. I shouldn't have to do that." And it's like, you're there, but it's 1 hour
Yeah.
and it led to the company that you've did you even think it was possible to work at Disney, you know?
No, I really didn't. Yeah, that's the funny thing is
Like
I was just like, I'm meeting somebody cool and,
yeah,
you know, I'll
but
have a
you also
connection.
didn't have an agenda about it. So you're like, "I'm gonna have
Sure.
coffee. Rob introduced me. I'm gonna have coffee. We're gonna nerd out for an hour. I'm gonna leave and do the rest of my trip." But you touched and reached out every few months. Like, "Hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going?"
Yeah.
The things that are so important in that, it's less about, what's really important about it is that you did it and you didn't make it hard. People have so much trouble with the outreach and am I going to be bothering the person and whatever. You send somebody a link that's like, "Hey, I stood up this cool website for this
Mhm.
thing over here," or "I'm farting around with Claude and I learned how to make a new dashboard in a tenth of the time," or whatever that is. Like, if it takes 2 minutes to read, no one's going to be mad, even if they don't apply.
Right. I
So,
I think I appreciate what you're saying because I would say that I've had people reach out to me with what felt very transactional. Like,
yeah,
hey, you work for this company. I'd like to talk to you about this, this, and this. I'm no longer listening, or even
right.
sometimes on LinkedIn, which unfortunately I feel like has become the new Facebook, Facebook with a tie. I'll read someone's post and I'll very quickly realize like, oh, this is literally just a sales. Like they're not, yeah, and I realized like you have to, promote yourself a little bit, but I just like to talk to people. I just
Yeah.
like to be able to say like, hey, I
People
know this.
hire people. So that's a thing that gets lost in all this too. People hire people, people promote people, people
Yeah.
buy from people. Even if you're buying from a giant brand like Google,
Hmm.
there's a sales, like if you're doing enterprise stuff, there's a sales rep involved. There are
Yeah.
people involved in all of this. And so just walking in with curiosity is the best way to go. I just was there's a Facebook group called Women in Product. It's women in product management and related roles. And somebody posted earlier today, "Hey, I have a 15-minute meeting with the new chief product officer, how do I maximize this meeting? How do I drive it? And my response was, this person is having 7,643 of these meetings in the next 30 days with everybody that's a stakeholder to get in front of them. You just need to be prepared to say what you do, what you're working on, and ask one or two curious questions about that person.
Yeah.
You don't drive anything.
Yeah.
If you are, that might not go well for you. Just be like, hey, I thought you think this is cool, or hey, I like what you're doing. But I like what you're doing at insert company. I think that you need SEO or your YouTube optimized, or can I pick your brain? It doesn't go as well. Just be curious about the human. So it's really important.
No, I love that. That's really good advice. Yeah, just be curious, because sometimes people just want to talk about the cool things that they do.
Yeah. Because there were probably a zillion qualified people that also love Disney that Erica could have hired.
1000%.
But you were the one that tried to have a little bit of a touch and a little bit of a relationship. And it was lightweight from what you're telling me. It's not like you were writing her a missive every month. You were sending like a DM every so often, or an email.
Basically, yeah. At one point I was like, hey, boss lady, just kind of messing around, just joking, but I think she just appreciated that I was just trying to be a human. Yeah.
Yeah. Before we go, one thing that I have a question I ask everybody, but I've got one more for you about this. What is something that people get wrong or they don't understand about being a cast member at Disney? Because you're a corporate side cast member.
Mm-hmm.
So what might people not understand about what that life is like?
That's an interesting question. So technically I've only been like a true cast member for the last 3 months, right? I was a contractor up until that point, working remotely. But I think what people don't realize is, and I needed to realize it, was that everything you do, even if it's not on stage, as they call it, you're not customer facing, everything you do contributes to the show, as they say. Everything you do should be to drive the company forward. And so that includes like your interactions, like in meetings. And I always just try to bring like this, hey, I'm just a fun loving guy. We're going to do, we're going to joke around, and then we're going to get serious and talk about, X, Y, Z. But I think people from the outside might not realize, especially from the corporate side, anybody in the parks, you're like, oh, this person's, they're having fun, et cetera. And the reality is some of them are working really, really hard, right? A lot of them are working really, really hard. But it's like, we're doing it because we're just interested in pushing.
So what you're saying is you're as involved in the mission of having a great show as whoever got up that day and dressed up as Elsa.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you everybody goes through the same like traditions and culture training too, right? When they start. So that's not just for people that are in parks. That's for people that are doing absolutely everything, including like wrangling your Tableau dashboards or whatever the hell it is that you
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I was surprised at just the variety of people I got a chance to meet when
it's so cool. It's fun to work in data just because you end up touching every part of the business. Before I go, I have one question I ask everybody, and that is, what is the worst piece of career advice you've ever received?
Worst piece of career advice I've ever received was, that sometimes sometimes you should write people off. So I've received career advice on the opposite end of the spectrum with regard to how to deal with like a toxic relationship or a person that you consider toxic. There's been the advice that like, no, absolutely, you should burn that guy down. You should do, whatever. Like they're your mortal enemy. I've received that advice before and realized that it's bad for me.
That doesn't seem like who you are.
It's not who I am.
Yeah.
But there was a part of me that felt that that's who I needed to be. But then I got some weird advice, and that was like, dude, there's no need for that. Just be
Yeah.
you. And yeah, you're not going to be best friends with this person, but treat them like a human. Um, if you come across them, you know that you can be kind, but don't don't just burn a bridge because you feel that you've been wronged. Just realize, like, yeah, my interactions with this individual might be limited, but I'm going to move forward. We might end up in the same circles again, and if
Mhm.
I'm not spitting poison, it's going to be a lot more
Yeah.
productive.
And there's a difference between somebody that's hard to get along with and
Mhm.
somebody that literally is bullying and abusing you at work. I don't think that
Yeah.
you're talking about someone
No,
like
no, no, no.
don't keep trying to work with someone that's actively like abusing or discriminating or any of that kind of stuff. But
Right.
well,
Well,
Kenny,
and you don't have to accept it. You
yeah,
don't have
you
to accept
don't.
the
You don't
behavior.
have to
Yeah.
accept it, but you also don't have to like spitting poison. I think was a really good way to put that. And I know I have not always been on the right side of that. I am a
Sure.
salty bitch.
Me too. Yeah.
So, well, Kenny, thank you so much for coming here and talking to us about your non-traditional path through
Thank you.
corporate and entrepreneurship and over to work at the Mouse House. I really appreciate it. So,
No, hey,
thank
thank you so much for having me on. This has been a great conversation, and I've
yeah,
thoroughly enjoyed it. So really appreciate
good
it.
times. All right. We'll see you next time, everyone.